Hey everyone, before we get started with our beautiful and wonderful guest today, Coach Jackie, let's do our fun little intro. Here we go.
Hey everyone, Dr. Rowena Winkler here. Join me every week as I interview entrepreneurs, light workers and healers, and other all-around badass human beings on their revelation stories.
Revelations with Rowena.
Woo!
Woohoo, indeed. Hello, everyone. Dr. Rowena Winkler here. I was just telling Jackie that for these next couple of weeks, I'm going to be recording from my home office and not where I usually record because we are in the midst of moving. There are boxes all over that you do not see on the screen because we're trying to, keep it still classy. But here we are, and you know what? It's all about the freedom, which is what we're going to be talking about with Jackie today. I'm so excited to have you here with us, Coach Jackie. When we connected and had our initial call, I was like, yes, yes, yes. Your energy is amazing. Your story is so resonant, and I feel like applies to a lot of us. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And I 100% on the same page as you. I loved our energy. I was like, man, it's been a while. We need to do this more often. And I'm glad we're here today. Thank you for having me.
So let's start things off the way that we always start things off here, which is just telling us your story. Where did you come from? How did you get here? And now you have this you have such an interesting life and lifestyle that please share with folks how you're doing this work.
Okay, so how long is this thing? Because it started when I was 2. No, I'm just kidding. My story. It's always funny because I think I start in a different place every time when I tell this story. But I was 30 years in the restaurant industry. After I went to college, I did like 2 years, 1 year actually of teaching. And I was like, no, can't do that for a lifetime. So God bless the teachers. You guys are amazing. I just couldn't do it. But so at that point, I decided to just kind of travel the country, but the restaurant business kind of gave me the opportunity to move through the country. And I went to Arizona for a couple of years, California. So as you hear my story, you're going to see this like freedom theme that I didn't realize I had the whole time. And I call myself a freedom mentor, and you'll see why as I tell the story. But the restaurant industry, what I loved about it is I was able to help people get to new levels, like hold that gift of belief for them until they got there. And people ask me all the time, like, oh my gosh, you've been doing this for so long. It's 12-hour days. It's 7 days a week. It's nights. It's weekends. Why do you do it? It's because the people. It was always because of I had this I just loved watching somebody get promoted out of my store or to the next level because that was giving them more freedom. It was giving them more money. Some of them would be able to buy homes because of the promotions we got them for their families. They were able to send kids to college and do all this amazing stuff that they couldn't do if they didn't have somebody to help them get through the process. But the last couple of years of that career, I made a change. I was like, I want to just challenge myself. And I went to the corporate office, and that was like putting an animal in a cage. So I'm a no box person, and I didn't realize how much I was a no box person. And with that, I struggled through for about a year, almost 2 years. And 2 months before June 2018, I found the coaching industry. I don't know about you, but I had no idea about coaching except for football coach, soccer coach, right?
Yeah.
When you first heard about coaching, were you like, huh?
Yeah.
I was like, what? There's this thing that I can do all the things I'm really great at in my own business. Are you kidding me? So to me, I started getting my health certificate, my life certificate, but I had no idea how to build the business side of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'll just go through the schooling and take my time. Well, 2 months after I met the coaching industry and started my schooling, I got let go from my job. And it was like an abrupt let go, escorted out like a criminal. And I remember crying for about 10 minutes, thinking, oh my gosh. But then I wear my tension in my shoulders. When you get real stressed, we all have somewhere we wear our tension.
Mm-hmm.
My shoulders loosened up. I was doing my hour drive home from work, and my shoulders got I was like, ooh, this feels really good. Why does this feel really good? Well, I just lost the job that was making me miserable. My relationship was on the rocks. My health was on the rocks. I was just really unhappy, but I was fighting through like we do, right? We're going to make it work. And That was the best day of my life because I had met this opportunity of possibility, and I'd been living this predictable life like we most of us do, where it's like it's very calculated based on what we know that we can do and what we should be doing and what
Mhm.
very calculated. And then this possibility life is like, well, what else is possible? Like, and I saw it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So now I had this like let go from. I would have never quit, by the way, because it
Yeah.
was what I know, right? And I had this happen, and then I had this opportunity. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? I was like, well, let's try to apply for jobs like I'm supposed to. And I did, and I got them all. And I said no to them, and I was like, oh, I'm like, why are you saying no? You're not making any money. I had my unemployment. I had a little bit of unemployment. Um, and I took like 6 months off. I had 2 weeks a year for 30 years of my life. I only got 2 weeks a year. And so now I've got all this time freedom. Didn't have
Mhm.
the money freedom yet, but I had all this time freedom to go wherever I wanted. So I got location freedom. And I was like, oh, whoa, once you like see it, you can't unsee it. Once you taste it,
Mhm.
you can't like forget it. So I was like, I'm never going back to a job. So then I just 2 feet in, hired a coach, helped myself build the business. Of course, I did all sorts of healing. You go into this and you're like, teach me the business. And then you end up like getting cracked open like a walnut and healing.
Yup.
That's not the business. Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
80% is this jammy, right?
Mhm.
20% strategy. So that's my journey to like how coaching started. And I the freedom part of it came from experiencing that and just knowing my whole life, like I didn't want to live in a box. I always kind of fought the stuff that like, no, this can be done differently, better, easily, more freedom. And so now I truly know there's no boxes. And I just want to tell everybody listening and thank you for listening that there's no boxes unless we put them on ourselves.
Oh my goodness. We are cut from the same cloth for sure because that resonates so much. The whole not being able to be boxed in and want not and always being the one to be like, well, we could do it this way, or why are we doing it this way? So thank you for sharing that story. And it's fascinating because I was just talking with a client very recently about sometimes, Mama Uni or God or sort whoever is there out there. Sometimes we're forced into these things,
Yes.
right? You got let go from the job or something happens that's similar because otherwise, as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, we stay where we are. And sometimes we're just moved into these situations where we finally get to step into what we can do by not being in that safe zone anymore, in that comfort zone anymore. So I love that you share that because I think for so many of us, we do end up hanging out where we're comfortable, but we're not happy. We're not
Yes.
fulfilled and free, you know?
Yes, 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 and yes, and but what helped me, like if I hadn't met the possibility of this business, and if I hadn't seen other people doing something that I could do, or and I also had the desire, I had a strong desire to be an entrepreneur, but I just never did it for 30 years. I mean, my
Mhm.
father was an entrepreneur, but we watched his business go really well and bankrupt and really well and bankrupt. And so we had this image as kids of like, that's really hard. He'd work 80 hours a week and lose everything. And we're like, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And all my siblings, no, out of 8 of us, I'm the only one who dived into entrepreneurship twice. Tried it another time, didn't work, and now I'm here. But if it wasn't for the possibility piece that I saw in the coaching side with the schooling and meeting all the people and putting myself in the world of people who were doing it,
Hmm.
I would have went back and got a job. So it's important to have the vision and put yourself in places where people, once you have the vision of what you desire, but like put yourself in the places of people doing it so that you can move yourself from predictability to possibility. Because without that, if you just let yourself blindside in the predictable life without dreaming and visioning, you're never going to really say yes to it. Like you're never going to take the chance of the leap. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it certainly does, and I love this idea of visioning. For me, I'm definitely a visual person, before I landed my TEDx talk earlier this year, I created a cute little Canva image of my TED Talk on YouTube just as a manifestation visualization, and then it came true, right? So that totally get it. What are some other ways when you mentioned that vision and that freedom vision, what does that look like for you or for other folks that you've worked with?
Well, I'll tell you, it is one of the hardest things. It was for me and for many people when I start with them, but it is the absolute first thing that I start with everybody. Because our brain only functions on the known, and usually the known is the past we can't change and future worries that we've created. And it's crazy because our brain is so powerful. It can create the most vivid images and make us feel like they're true. Most of the time we go to those worries, right? Like, I'm so worried that if I don't go get a job, I'm going to live in a cardboard box and lose everything, and we go down this like beautiful unhappy picture, but it has the same power to paint the vision of what you desire and all of the joy and the love and the experiences and all that stuff. And so when I discovered that, when I learned that I could do that one instead of that one, and I didn't have to do that one, this we can't control the future, but what we can control is what we feed our brains with and feed our soul with. So the vision helps the brain go. I'll give you an example. I used to live in a lake community, but I didn't live on the lake. But I lived like on the outskirts. Like, we had to walk a little bit to get to the lake. And this was right in the beginning of my coaching career. So I'd take my laptop and I'd go down there and I would sit at a picnic table on the lake and I'd be like, I love my lake home. I love my mountain view. And I would talk about it like it was mine. And because that is a goal of mine. Like, that's a dream of mine, is to have my own property. Now, I've put it on hold because I want to see the whole country first and figure out where I want that dream to be. But I've seen lots of areas between Wyoming and Montana and South Dakota and areas in Colorado that we love. So we don't know where we're going to end up with that dream. But I know I'm going to have that lake house with the mountain view because it's so ingrained in my brain that it's already done. It's just figuring out where I want it, right? But that's a way to get your brain now to go, okay, this is true to Jackie. This is real. And now I'm going to do anything it takes to help her solve this problem, because it's a problem-solving machine. And the problem is she doesn't have her lake house yet. So how can I help her get it? Help it come to fruition. And the same thing with God, universe. Like, that works with us energetically. Now I have the energetic match to a property with a lake house and everything, because it's absolutely happening. I want to know. I just got to figure out where. Being in an RV and traveling the country, for those of you who don't know, we're full-time in an RV and we don't have a home base. And we're trying to figure out where we want that home base to be as we travel the country. So when you ask, what do people do? It's like, really step into what it is you desire. But I really needed, I needed help with that. Like, I needed someone to help read the label on my jar. We sit in a jar. We can't read this part when you're inside of it. I was inside of it, and I needed someone to help me, ask me the right questions, and help me to think differently, help me to like close my eyes and dream and meditate and do those kind of things. Because, girl, I was not woo-woo 4 years ago whatsoever. Whatsoever. I think we had this conversation, right?
We did.
Girl, if you told me you're going to meditate, you're going to tap your face, I'd be like, are you cray? Like, who are you? But now I do it all, and I love it.
Yes, we love it. We love someone that comes to embrace the woo. We're here for it. So is that the work that you do then with your clients? You're the one that asks those questions and is the label of the jar reader person?
Yeah, because with something that I learned early on in my leadership with the restaurant industry was, employees, you can't tell people what to do. You tell people what to do, they go to do it, and if it doesn't work out, it's your fault, right? And it's not their thought. You're not teaching them how to fish. The old saying, you teach them how to fish versus like giving them the fish. I have this. I've always had this ability I had it early on, but didn't realize it until I got into like all my leadership positions, that I would ask my employees enough questions to get them to say what it is that they desire to do. And it was their idea on how to do it. And then they walked through fire to do it. And I didn't have to like do anything for it. I just had to get them to think and decide differently than when they were deciding. And so when I moved into, it was funny, when I started coaching, I said something about being new. And one of my employees and a good friend of mine turned to me. She's like, "You've been doing this forever. What do you mean new?" And so she was right. Like, I had been doing this. Now I have a gift that God gave me that has the ability to do that and help people get through whatever it is, the old story, rewire the old story, create the new story, and move forward with it. Because we can get comfortable in the predictability, even if it's not what we want. It's what we know, so we're comfortable and it's safe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's so tough to make that leap into the unknown when we're so hardwired for that safety, right? Where our
yeah,
ego is like, "No, you're good here."
right, right, right. And I,
Yeah.
what helps, like, it helps when I just immerse them into possibility and possibility and
Mm,
possibility.
mm,
I call it, I have three pillars. I call it awaken, empower, and own. And the first pillar is really like, we got to awaken. We were born with all of the stuff that we needed, infinite value from the day we were born. And so it's all in there. But at some point, remember when you were a kid, you were like, I could be a doctor or a teacher. I could do like,
yeah.
I made the best mud pies like that would sell on, like, I don't know, New York, the best New York bakery. We were just fearless.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then life happened, right? Walls were put
Mhm.
up, things were created, stories, beliefs.
Mm.
And I'm just here to help you get back to that, and get back to your personal power, awaken it, and then empower it through boundaries and communication and different things. But then own the heck out of that personal power, goddess, leader, whatever you want to call that inner thing
Yes.
inside that just gets me giddy, as you can see.
Yes.
Because when you own that, that means you love the heck out of yourself
Mm.
and you're unapologetic, and
Mm.
you're you, and everything you do, you align yourself with what it is. You don't do what people think you should be doing. You're doing what you truly are meant to be doing on this
Mm.
earth.
Mm. That's so tough for a lot of us, isn't it? Right? To really own and do what we want to do and to be ourselves. It's that it sounds so simple in practice, but it actually is so, so challenging. Can you speak to that and perhaps what you've seen in terms of the challenges and just being yourself? Not caring?
Girl, so
Yeah.
when I started the journey, when I mentioned the beginning of the journey and stuff, the thing that was the hardest thing for me to do is be alone with myself.
Oh, we
Okay.
really are the same person. We are so much the same. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So
I
true.
One of the biggest stories, one of the bigger stories of my life, that is, it might be a trigger, so I'll go quickly through it. But one
Mm.
of my ways of emotional regulation was I did use bulimia, like binging for the loneliness, because food meant company, meant love. Because in my family, my mom passed away when I was younger, and from 7 on, I was very much had to alone and had to like make my own decisions, food,
Mm.
laundry, get to school, all that stuff, because dad worked 80 hours and my brothers were all older. And so for many, many years, whenever there was food around, people were around. Right. And so I related the
Mm.
story to, like, I will, if food's around, I'm not alone. So that's that side. But then the bulimia side of it came from the piece of, I'm angry and I'm frustrated, and I didn't have anybody to release that to, or have anybody to help me through it or anything like that.
Mm.
And so that kept me sane. Now, I don't call myself a bulimic, because that's a title that I don't own that title. It's not, I'm not that. That was my way of staying safe for 30 years and emotionally regulating, and I was a badass at it because nobody knew my entire life that was the
Yeah.
case. And what it did is it was the mechanism that I use. Now I've learned different ways, different decisions, different ways of
Mm.
nourishing myself, and different ways of regulating my emotions, and actually being vulnerable and releasing, and liking to be with myself. So that whole
Mhm.
time I hated that alone time with self, so I avoided. I would have, oh my gosh, I should have been in networking meetings ages ago, because I create all these like dinners for everybody, and we would all get together, and I work 50 million hours and anything to stay away from being alone with myself. So
Yeah.
what do you think the first year was about with my coach? Exactly that. Learning how to be with myself. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is painful.
Yeah.
Once you get through the work, and I know this is probably like, people are probably like, I never want to do that. Worth every
Yeah.
tear, every moment, every uncomfortableness. And now it's crazy when people on Facebook, like, I had someone, my Facebook is my digital diary. So when you go on there, everything you want to know about me is there pretty much. My travels, who I am, my funny stories, my boyfriend, my dogs, whatever. It's all there. And I use that to show people the possibilities of what life, one, can be like, two, they're not alone, be vulnerable, all that other stuff. And I had somebody just last week grab me by the shoulders who met me for the first time. I was like, I can pull you out of Facebook and put you back into Facebook and you're the same person. And I'm like, I am, because that's just who I am. And I didn't realize how much that's not the case.
Yes.
Until she actually like said that to me. She's like, no, Jackie, like people aren't like you are exactly that person. I was like, well, literally, I want to tell you guys all my stories every day, but now I post more than I ever did when someone told me I had to.
Yeah.
Because it's just fun. So that was a lot, I know.
No, it wasn't. No, well, first of all, thank you for sharing something so vulnerable and something that I feel that a lot of folks have contended with, but perhaps it has manifested in one way or the other. I know for me, it's the perfectionism piece, right? The workaholic nature of, well, if I just keep doing things, I can't sit with myself and contend with that. So it's really tough to do that work. And it's interesting because you mentioned this at the beginning, right? That becoming an entrepreneur and building your own business is so much inner work. There's so much you're contending with to build your brand and be a business owner that I think a lot of folks don't realize. But man, oh man, as you mentioned, once you put in that work and you dig deep, and as you mentioned, you create that vision, golly, the possibilities are just endless, huh?
Oh my gosh, yes. And it gets easier. We fight the easy. We've been taught that everything's got to be hard. You got to work hard. You got to push. You got to struggle. You got to, like, everything's like, it doesn't grow on tree. Money doesn't grow on tree. I mean, all these sayings that were given to us and all these things. And as I discovered, when I really got in tune with me and aligned with me, like, everything seemed to get a lot easier. Now, I resisted it at first, and I had somebody supporting me that was like, what if the easy is what it's always meant to be? Because when you're in your gifts and there's less resistance, right? I have a saying I go by every day. It's like, is it coming from pleasure or pressure? When I have to make a decision and I feel very pressured into the decision, like the easy one, the easy example is, you must post 3 times a day, the algorithm, this, that, a content calendar, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, like, that felt like such pressure to me all the time whenever someone said anything about it. And what I realized is that has no pleasure in that for me. But now how I've learned, how I've embraced myself and owned myself and owned my magic, it's very pleasurable for me to just jump on and do a live or tell you about my peanut butter and jelly sandwich or look what my tea bag says today, or we're at a distillery right now in my camper.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. I sorry, I forgot where I was going with that after that.
Oh, no, you're fine. And actually, I remember when we had our initial chat, you mentioned this pleasure versus pressure, and that was just like, in and of itself, that's such a wonderful gem and a solid reminder that, yeah, it's okay. It, like, if it's easy, you're absolutely right. A lot of us are like, uh-oh, wait, hold on. Why is this so seamless?
And then we layer stuff to make it harder, right?
Yes.
We're like,
complicate it.
Gotta make it harder. This can't be this easy. I've done it.
Yeah. And I love what you said. You mentioned it in regards to content, right? Because I think a lot of us get, as entrepreneurs and just, folks in general, we get so overwhelmed with the content creation and the calendar and pumping things out. And, there's the best practices on what we're supposed to do. But you're absolutely right. If it's not in alignment, if it doesn't light you up, then it's going to come off as contrived and people are going to see that. And it's not going to be you, as that person said, like, you're not being yourself in and out of the online space. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And the more what we just talked about a few minutes ago about getting aligned with yourself and getting in tune with yourself and loving yourself and listening to yourself and all those things, your intuition, as you do that, you're gonna feel it in, like, your gut, your stomach, your
Mhm.
heart, wherever you feel
Mhm.
it, you're gonna feel the or the like you're gonna feel the this feels like wants to make me want to throw up. This feels like it makes me want to jump for joy. Like
Yeah.
you do feel the resistance. Now there's two kinds of resistance that I kind of have to remind myself. One of is like I'm resisting this because I'm scared and it's the unknown and stuff like that. But I'm excited that I want to do it, but I'm in my head about it, right? So that's
Mm.
one resistance, and that can be worked through by just telling yourself, like having a new story of what the possibility and this, like what how it can work out and all the other stuff. But then
Mhm.
there's the resistance of like this just isn't me, and this is someone else's
Mm.
words that I think are mine, and they're not, or someone else's activity. Now, I
Yeah.
tried a lot of stuff. You probably did too, right? When
Oh,
you first started doing
absolutely.
this,
It's always
you're like
experimentation.
spaghetti on the wall, spaghetti on the wall, spaghetti on the
Yup.
wall. You have to do
You
that. So I'm
have
not
to.
saying
Yeah.
don't try new things, but once you try new things, listen to your intuition. Like listen to your gut of what's
Mm.
aligned.
Yeah, that was actually my follow-up question to that, is that discernment piece, right? Do
Mm-hmm.
you have any thoughts on how do you know the difference between I'm resisting because I'm meeting my edge versus I'm resisting because nay, nay, no, no, I shouldn't be doing this at all?
Nay, nay, no, no. I love that. Um, for me, it was a question I used to ask myself, like when I was like in a place where this is I'm not doing that.
Mm.
I'd stop and listen. What's the story I'm telling myself? Like, what is it that's running? What's the
Mm.
tape running through my head? So if it was something like no one wants to hear me, like or
Yeah.
that I'm posting, like I'm no one that's too much, and I don't want to bother people, like whatever the story is, I'd stop and ask myself, is that true?
Yeah.
It's just a one question. Is that true, Jackie? And I, with just and here's a key thing that helped me. And please ask the question with curiosity, no judgment. Because what happens, we get into such judgment of ourselves and we get into this like never
Yes.
ending loop of like saying negative things about ourselves and beating ourselves up for something and all that other
Mhm.
stuff. So no judgment, just curious. Why am I thinking this? Like, why am I feeling this? Why am I thinking this? And just give yourself a few seconds, a few minutes to like actually answer the question. And 99.9% of the times, it wasn't true that I was doubting this. People don't want to hear me, like whatever the stories I was telling myself. And then I'd have to ask myself, so is this something that feels good to do? And like for me, would it bring me joy
Mhm.
to go
Mhm.
post, if we're just use that as our example?
Mhm.
And I'd be like, yeah, I would love to just pick up the phone and share this with a friend. So why wouldn't I want to share it on Facebook and tell my friends on my Facebook, right? And it was the stories of like, oh, if it's not good enough or this and that would stop me.
Mhm.
And those aren't true. So once I removed the untrue stories and told the truth of the situation to myself and helped me realize, of
Mm.
course, people want to laugh and smile at the things that I'm doing. Of course, people want to hear about my RV travels. I remember in the beginning, I was like, I asked a friend, I said, am I sharing too much about my RV stuff? They're like, oh no, we want to know exactly where you are. We want to know what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, cool. And people are like, where are you now? And I'm like, so it's joyful
Yeah, yeah.
because it's joyful for me.
Right. I feel like that tends to be the case, right? That oftentimes the thing we're like, "Oh no, it's too much," or whatever. Folks are like, "Oh my gosh, give us more. We love it."
Yes, 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 and yes. And if we could only see ourselves through the eyes of other people,
Yes.
whew.
Yes. You brought up the self-love thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can we dive into that
Oh,
just a bit in terms I know. Maybe not a
yes.
bit. I mean, that'll be, a whole day. But I
We got a
mean,
couple hours.
right, gosh. I mean, it is so tough, whether it's upbringing or conditioning or the stories or whatever, right? The inner saboteur or whatever's going on. That going to a place of self-love and self-worth is so difficult. So tell us, Coach Jackie, what are some tips to get there, or how can we start working toward getting there? Obviously, I don't see it as oh, I'm healed. I'm full of self-love now, the end.
No, that's like I went to the gym once and my butt
Yeah,
felt
right?
no. So it is a journey, and but it for so the the awareness of stepping into awareness is the key to any change. The first step is
Mm,
awareness. So when it comes to actually like being aware of like what you're saying, the words coming out of your mouth, what are you thinking? I found that I didn't even realize at all the things I was saying to myself and how much I was saying to myself and what I was thinking on like a constant basis. And when I talk about freedom, the number one freedom in that, like beside like self-love, but the number one freedom was the chatter in my brain when it went away. Like chatter in my head, like whatever your thing is that you have chatter in your head about, when you can free that and change that to like joy and love and no longer beat yourself up, constantly tell yourself stuff, think this, think that, whatever it is. Oh my gosh, how much more time I have in my day.
Yes.
Oh my, it was the most freeing part of my journey. And so the story I told you guys earlier about how I used bulimia to manage my emotions and stuff, there was so much chatter around that when it came to food and all that stuff that when I realized I could use different methods and I can like with meditation and being quiet with myself, going for walks, being. That's a whole nother topic, girl.
Yeah,
Just being.
girl.
Like we want to do and we want to have, but we forget to be. And I yeah. But so starting with just awareness of like I tell my clients, okay, for the next 7 days or 14 days, depending on how our sessions are, all I want you to do throughout the day is just be aware of what you're saying and thinking. And then we have 100,000 thoughts. You're not going to catch them all. And 90% of them are subconscious, but there's enough that are present. And all of them come back to me like, oh my gosh, I never knew. I never realized. I was never consciously, intentionally living in the awareness of what I was actually. So I was like, well, what are some of the things that you heard? And what did you, and throughout the week, they would send them to me. And they were like, just, would you ever say that to your kid? Like, would you ever say that to
Oh
your
my
mom?
gosh.
No.
Yes.
No. So then it's like, but no judgment, curious, where is it coming from? What's coming from XYZ? Then what do you want it to be instead? And it's a journey, like you said. It's like, let's just rewire that one. Like, what's the new story for that one? So when you say something like, gosh, you're so dumb, or whatever it is, I can't believe I just did that, and there's total judgment. It's like, I'm so glad I tried that. Now I know for next time, like the lesson is this, whatever, just rewiring. There's little words, like even with money, because I had big money stories. It wasn't spending, it was investments. Like, what's this going to cost me? Nope. What's the investment for this?
Yes.
So, just little, it's, and sometimes it's just one tweak of a word and it can totally change your being.
Well, listen, Dr. Rowena loves a good reframe, especially when it comes to language. So those are great examples. Also, get out of my head, because I feel like those are definitely stories I've said to myself. And also, I know, I love how you move, because as you were telling this, it was like you were this angel. It was like, like you had like this beautiful light coming through as you were sharing this such profound wisdom. I thought it was
now
so
you get
gorgeous.
my RV.
That was so lovely. It was like, it felt so right that you were dropping this beautiful, like, how can we get back to that place of self-love? And I think that was just a wonderful way for it to manifest visually for us. So thank you.
I planned that. Thank you, God. Thank you for playing the game.
Wonderful. Okay, here's my last question, unless another one comes through. But the whole thing about freedom vision, what does freedom mean to you? Like, how do you define freedom in this context? Or what does freedom mean in regards to your life, in regards to the work that you do in your coaching and with your clients?
Thank you for asking that, because I got told a year ago I couldn't sell freedom, so just change my name. Like, just like, don't go that route, try something different. I think leadership would be better, because that's not oversold. But anyway, no judgment. I was like, I can sell freedom. Like, freedom to me, and it goes back to kind of what we just talked about with the self-love and the like the chatter being, changing the way that we're talking to ourselves and thinking to ourselves, and freeing the useless mind chatter that is consuming us on every day, that's just not true. And so true freedom for me is when you stand in your truth of who you are unapologetically, I take radical responsibility for everything in my life, like
Mm.
radical responsibility. And that sounds harsh to some people. They're like, well, I didn't do that. Well, they did this. And I'm like, when you take radical responsibility for that, everything in your life you've created, you've brought into your life, you've decided what is in your life today. And like,
Mm.
and, and people are like, no. I was like, no, no, no. When you do that, you free yourself, because then you know that you get to decide. You have the
Mm.
choices. You have the power. You are in control of not control of like you know when things come and how things come, but you get to decide what this feels like, what this thinks like,
Yes.
with this, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's that's the most powerful freedom in my, because then when you make decisions, there's no bad decisions. Like they're all like a learning lesson. When
Mm.
something happens to you, it's for you. It's no longer to you. It's
Mm.
happening for you. And then you
Mm.
get to you find the lesson, and you realize that all of this is meant to be happening. You take the radical responsibility is freedom, but it's hard to like switch it at first. But when you understand that, whoo, let me tell you,
Yeah. Yeah.
some really cool stuff
Because
happens.
even the most challenging things oftentimes are the biggest lessons, right?
Right.
That there's so much we can glean from those tough moments in life.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness, you're quite a delight. So how can, because I'm sure everyone who's watching, listening is also gonna just fall in love with you as we have here. And we had your brilliant angel light behind you. Where can folks find you? What have you got going on? What can we, what can you share with the folks that want to get to know you?
So you can find me in any state. We've done 4 of them in 4 days. I'm just kidding. We've literally driven through 5 different states in 4 days. We're like, okay,
Wow.
it's enough. But like I said earlier, my Facebook, come first of all, be friends with me on Facebook. If you're a Facebook person, I am on all the other platforms, but I channel everything through my personal Facebook page. And so literally, if you want to know my energy, who I am, what I'm doing, programs that I have, all that stuff, it all gets sprinkled in there. But I do have a website, Jackie Cote Coaching. But I really lead people to Facebook because that's where all the magic really kind of
Mm.
happens for me. And then I also have the free intentional goal setting that I'd love to give all your audience, because, and that will be, if you want to be on the email list, you can do that. If not, you're welcome to unsubscribe. I'm not a very big email person, so you don't get a lot from me. Like I get enough to like sprinkle, but I don't
Sure.
bombard because I don't like email that much
Yeah.
personally. But the freebie is all about all the visioning that we talked about. Like, how do you make goal setting each month fun and intentional,
Mm.
and enjoy the journey from now until you receive whatever the external goal is. And then then it helps you internally satisfy those, like those love, safety, belonging. Because do you ever have like an external money goal and get there and be like, I'm happy for a second, but that didn't do
Yeah.
it, or a weight goal and that didn't do it.
Mhm.
Intentional goal setting really taps into the experience along the way and detach.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Interesting.
and we get markers out and we like do things, we draw things, and we like actually write everything out in different colors. So
Yes.
it's, my type A personality clients were like, what? I got a color? And I'm like, yes, you do. Get back to childhood. Yes, you do. And they did, and now they do it. They do it every month now. It's hilarious. So that is going to be in there. And then if you want to go deeper after listening to a 30-minute video, actually, I think it's only 20 minutes video about intentional goal setting, there's a call in there that we can connect.
Well, this is just lovely because we're getting toward the end of 2022 while we're recording this, which is hard to believe. I don't know how we're almost at the end of the year. It's bananas. So, what better way to start goal setting and being intentional with the end of the year coming up and a new year coming through? So, that sounds like a lovely freebie that I definitely am going to check out myself because I love having different colored pens and crayons and
Right?
fun times,
Go
colors.
back. Oh, you go back to kid. Go back to being a kid. It's like
Yes.
life would be
Inner
so much
child
more fun.
Rowena loves it, loves it. Well,
Yes.
this has been amazing, Jackie. I just appreciate you so much. I love your energy, as we mentioned, just the unapologetic nature and Yes, you own that freedom. You can coach
Woo!
on freedom, and you can show us how we can vision our freedom and make it real, as you've shown us in the work that you do and your RV life. It's so fun.
But you don't have to be in an RV to have a freedom life. I get that
Yes.
question all the time. I'm like, no,
Mm,
everyone has their own version of a freedom life. You literally, like, in your own situation, can be more free without
yes.
changing location, without doing any of it. It's an inside job.
Yes. Oh gosh, that's such a beautiful way to end here today. Folks, I'll be sure to drop all of the links that Jackie mentioned in terms of the Facebook profile and the freebie and other information as well, email, other social channels. So yes, you need to get on that right now and get intentional with your goal setting and learn more about this woman because she is fabulous. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've been en route and driving, especially this past day. So I appreciate you so much for coming on. And I hope that folks will, get a chance to learn more about you. And I know that I have, and I'm here for it. So thank you again.
I so appreciate you, and I love your energy too.
Oh,
So
thank
thank you
you.
so much, and I look forward to just learning more about you, your audience, and all that as we continue our relationship.
Yes, yes, it doesn't end here. Awesome. So, next week, we're going to be chatting with Susan Erickson, a certified life coach, and she's going to be talking about living a life of abundance. So it's so tied. I feel like this happens a lot. I'm like, oh, the next step, oh, that fits that. So learning how to live your best life, be in your highest vibration, highest energy, and to share that with the world. So with that, I just want to thank everyone. Thank you, Jackie. Please reach out to her, connect with her. And until then, I hope y'all take care. And oh, at the time of this recording, we have Halloween coming up. So
Yes.
have fun, be safe. The veil is thin, so get your woo on. Thank you all.
Yes. Bye, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.